Welcome, everybody, once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. Dog days of the summer are here, but we still have lots to talk about. And let's get it going right away with all the RFA, UFAs that have re-signed up with their teams, and then we'll go on to some of the bigger ones as well. We've got some trades. We've got some coaching extensions. We have a retirement. Man, there's lots to talk about. Matt, take us away.
All right. So first we'll go to the signings of players joining new teams. The Montreal Canadiens were a little busy. They gave Ben Chiarot a 3-year contract at a $3.5 million cap hit, and also Nick Cousins a 1-year, $1 million cap hit. Chiarot will basically replace Jordy Ben on the back end, and Cousins is a guy that's a depth center, but he can also play all three forward positions. So I like both of those signings. The Buffalo Sabres signed Marcus Johansson to a 2-year deal with a $4.5 million cap hit. Buffalo desperately needs secondary scoring, so I really like the fit there. And we'll get into the trade later, where I think they'll be adding the top 6 forward, I think, later this summer in a following trade up. And then today, the Vancouver Canucks signed Michael Furlan to a 4-year, $14 million deal at a $3.5 million cap hit.
Great cap hit compared to what was being reported, what he was asking for. Good job by the Canucks, I think, on that signing.
Yeah, because he'll definitely bring the physical element. We remember way back in 2015 when he was with the Calgary Flames, and I still think he was charging basically on every hit that he made in those playoffs. But he is a guy that you can sort of play him wherever in the lineup. You can play him on the first line, you can play him on the third line, sort of thing. So I'm really happy about that. The only one concern that I have is that he did deal with some concussions towards the end of the season, but as long as he's healthy, I really like the pickup. Going into re-signings with the teams, a lot of RFAs getting locked up. The Toronto Maple Leafs locked up Alex Kerfoot to the exact same deal that Furlan signed, a 4-year, $14 million deal. Cody Ceci also got a 1-year, $4.5 million deal with the Leafs. Now all Toronto Maple Leafs defensemen outside of Morgan Riley only have 1 year left on their contract, with Ceci, Tyson Barrie, and Jake Muzzin are all UFAs at the end of the season.
This is their year, or it's not going to happen, I think, for Toronto.
Yeah, basically, and their roster is basically set for. I think they got like a couple injuries to deal with at the beginning of the season, but other than that, I really like their roster. The Vancouver Canucks also re-signed Josh Levo to a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. The Buffalo Sabres locked up Zemgus Girgensons to a 1-year, $1.6 million deal. Colorado locked up Nikita Zadorov to a 1-year, $3.2 million deal.
Great value there from Colorado on that deal.
Mm-hmm. The Tampa Bay Lightning re-signed Cedric Paquette to a 2-year deal with a $1.65 million cap hit. And the steal of the summer, the San Jose Sharks re-signed Kevin Labanc to a 1-year, $1 million deal. This is a guy that put up 17 goals and 56 points last season.
All hail GM Doug Wilson.
Yeah, and he also
I have no idea how this is even possible.
Yeah, only 2 years in the league. He had 40 points the year prior and 56 this year, and he put up another 4 goals and 9 points in the playoffs this year as well. So, I don't understand. I think I know
he was huge in the comeback against Vegas in Game 7.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, and that goal in the Colorado series where he did the can opener on Ron and putting the puck between his feet and then sniping it. Oh man, it's such a nice goal. But yeah, I still can't get my head wrapped around how you can put up 56 points and only get paid $1 million. But that does free up the cap space, because I think the Sharks only have a little over $5 million in cap space, and they need. With Joe Thornton probably returning, and still the question mark around Patrick Marleau joining them. They got more than enough money now to re-sign both of those guys.
Somebody's got to be buying Labanc a house or something, because, I mean, can you imagine being Labanc in the dressing room and wondering if you're pulling your weight and you're sitting next to, the $12 million Erik Karlsson, or just insane how they got him on such a great deal.
Well, I sure hope he has a great season this year, just so he that way next.
He's gonna get paid next year, man. Like,
Well, because yeah, he'll most likely be playing in the top six with guys like Pavelski moving on or whatever. So yeah, as I said, I'm totally surprised by that deal. The St. Louis Blues locked up Zach Sanford to a 2-year deal with a $1.5 million cap hit. I see him basically replacing like Patrick Maroon's role on the third line. I'd see that. The Vegas Golden Knights re-signed Malcolm Subban to a 1-year $850K deal. He'll most likely be the backup once again behind Marc-Andre Fleury. The Boston Bruins re-signed Danton Heinen to a 2-year deal with a $2.8 million cap hit. Langley native, so shout out to him getting paid there. And the last one is Alex Iafallo with the LA Kings. Got a 2-year extension at a $2.43 million cap hit.
perfect. And we also had one trade anyways. Not really sure what direction Chicago's going as they keep trading off all their first round draft picks.
Yeah.
And this one to me didn't make a lot of sense for Chicago. But I think it was a great trade from Buffalo. But I mean, only time will tell. But why don't you go over the trade and then talk about the coaching extensions?
Yeah. So, with the trade, the Chicago Blackhawks traded Henry Jokiharju to Buffalo for Alex Nylander, both former first-round picks. Nylander, I believe he was taken 8th overall in the 2016 draft. He's a guy that just hasn't been able to crack an NHL lineup. He only had 31 points in 49 games in the AHL last season, and he's only been in 3 seasons in the AHL, only been a half-a-point game player. Though he does still have a lot of offensive upside, and Chicago does have a spot in their top 6 open this coming season. So maybe he'll make it, but I'm not too high on Nylander. And then with Jokiharju going to Buffalo,
brother has.
and then with Buffalo getting Jokiharju, they have a lot of right-handed defensemen on their team. So they picked up Colin Miller earlier this summer. They picked up Brandon Montour at the trade deadline. They got Rasmus Ristolainen, who I believe is going to get traded this summer. Just with all the trade talk, and with Jokiharju being right-handed. And then you also got Zach Bogosian, who I believe it will start the season on injured reserve, if I remember correctly. And then Casey Nelson is another guy on a one-way contract that's a right-handed D-man. So they're crowded on that right-hand side. But yeah, Jokiharju, I can see him being a top 4 defenseman eventually. Or even maybe this season, and maybe a potential partner for Rasmus Dahlin down the road. The cool stat here is that Stan Bowman, since taking over as GM of the Blackhawks in 2009, from 2009 to 2017, he has traded away every player he has drafted in the first round. These are names that include Kevin Hayes in 2010, Philippe Deneau in 2011, Teuvo Teravainen in 2012, Ryan Hartman in 2013, Nick Schmaltz in 2014, and Jokiharju. Those are the bigger names. They got a couple duds that they drafted in the first round also in there. But yeah, it's just crazy that all those years in a row. And there were a couple years where they didn't have first round picks in there. But yeah, that's a really interesting stat. And then coaching extensions, we had 2. The Pittsburgh Penguins gave us Mike Sullivan a 4-year extension. What can you say? He's won 2 cups, 4 seasons behind the bench. The Penguins have had over or at least 100 points in all 4 of them. And Colorado gave Jared Bednar a 2-year extension. Great. With the Avalanche making the playoffs this year and the way that their roster is constructed, they're looking like they're going to be a really good team for years to come. And then a couple.
I'm really excited to see the Colorado Avalanche play this year with the young players that they have.
Oh yeah, and one thing to touch on with Chicago, so they basically think that Alex Nylander and Kirby Dach are better than Boehm Byram and Henry Jokiharju in the long term, which I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Just with those guys being passed over, and with Chicago's lack of depth in their defense prospects. Like I know they got a couple of guys. Adam Boquist is like their big name, guy. But other than that, they were pretty veteran back end. A couple of guys signing over in the KHL or Europe. We had Marcus Kruger. He left the Chicago Blackhawks for Switzerland. And two guys signing in the KHL. Sven Andrighetto left the Colorado Avalanche. And Ty Ratty left the Edmonton Oilers to join Craig McTavish with Locomotive in the KHL.
Oilers stick together. That's what we learned for sure. They've always seemed to find each other. But, yeah, so a couple of players decided to do a little bit of drinking over the weekend in New York. Why don't you share that story with us? And it's only – I think every hockey player has, had some, some alcoholic beverages, had some fun. And to me, this is only news because it's such a dry part of the year. But, yeah, why don't you share the story with us and then people can chime in.
All right. So a couple prospects. Columbus Blue Jackets forward Sonny Milano and Colorado Avalanche's forward AJ Greer were arrested early Sunday morning in Manhattan over a fight with a 28-year-old man over a nightclub bill from earlier in the night. They've been charged with, I think it's like third-degree assault and one other. And their court hearing right now is scheduled tentatively for September 4th. I think the rumored bill was like around like $10,000 or something like that. Don't take my word on that. That's just something that I heard possibly. So, but yeah, it's just and with both of those guys, they're actually both needing new contracts next season. So it's not exactly a great spot for those guys to put themselves in. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just like you just shake your head or whatever. It's just like, oh, come on, man. It's just,
yeah, you got to behave a little bit more than that, especially when you're representing a sports team. But and the thing is this is news in the hockey world, but I believe it happens a lot more in basketball and football. And only the bigger stuff makes the news there. It's not the first time a hockey player has been in a fight at a bar or argued at a bar, and it probably won't be the last. So, Greg Johnson, former Nashville Predator captain, passes away pretty young, only I believe 48 years old. I still remember having his hockey card from the World Junior days in 1991 when he played with the likes of Pat Malone, Scott Niedermayer, Eric Lindros, and was one of the captains, I believe, of that World Junior team. Great NHL career and sad news out of Detroit there yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And he also won a silver medal in 1994 at the Olympics. That was the famous Peter Forsberg performing his patented Forsberg move on Corey Hirsch in that year. So, but yeah, he 48 years old, played 12 seasons in the NHL between Detroit, Nashville, Chicago, and Pittsburgh, and he was actually a part of the expansion draft for Nashville, if I remember off the top of my head as well. So yeah, sad news whenever you see a guy pass away that young, and condolences to his family, friends, and all his former teammates and management members and all that. So yeah, sad news there. And then going to the retirement that got announced today, Matt Cullen has called it a career after 21 seasons in the NHL. At 42 years old, he played 1,000.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And it is crazy. 1,516 games played, 731 points, and he never had a season where he had and he never had a 50-point season in his entire career. So to put up 731 points and never reach the 50-point mark is crazy good. 3 Stanley Cups, 2006 with Carolina, and then the back-to-back wins with Pittsburgh. And then he was a bit of a journeyman, too. He played with Anaheim, Florida, Carolina twice, Ottawa, Minnesota twice, and then he also played with Pittsburgh twice and Nashville as well. So three times he either traded away and then came back to that team, which is something that you rarely ever see. Like you might see it happen once where a player gets traded away and then comes back, but 3 separate times, either in a trade or free agency. to leave and come back is crazy. But yeah, just one of those great careers. And yeah, he basically went out on top, basically winning the 2 cups with Pittsburgh there. So, but yeah, a great career, and that basically wraps everything up. Other than another funny story with there all of a sudden there were reports that Don Cherry's contract might not be renewed for for Coach's Corner on CBC, and Cherry himself debunked that pretty quickly on Twitter, saying I'm not going anywhere, sort of thing. But that's another thing. It's like how much longer will Cherry be be on? Because it's like I know he's iconic or whatever, but eventually there'll be a time where you're gonna have to move on one way or the other. But I still love seeing him on Coach's Corner, even though most of the things he says nowadays is just you just shake your head and laugh.
He's old school.
But yeah.
He's old school, so it's kind of funny to watch. So, anyways, we're out of time. We're gonna end today's show. Remember to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or like on Facebook. Leave your comments below. Let us know about about what we talked about today. Who's your favorite signing? What's your team doing? We always love to hear from our fans. And we'll be here again next Wednesday, as we're down to 1 time per week here through the summer. And we'll be back in full force come probably September. Yeah, we look forward to interacting with you guys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. And we'll see you guys all next Wednesday on B&B Hockey Talk.